Welcome to Pam Jammer's Regression Tales. We post new stories every week, so be sure to subscribe, like, and share to stay updated. If you'd like to support the channel, see sequels, vote on upcoming stories, or even request a custom tale, check out my Patreon. Every bit of support helps bring more magical stories to life. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. The Diaper Curse. Chapter 1, Growing Pains. You? Move out? Claudia said, her tone light and teasing as she leaned against the kitchen counter. She crossed her arms, smirking. Oh, sure. You're going to live on your own and be some big, independent man. I'll believe it when I see it. Carter glared at her, his jaw tightening. I am moving out, Mom. I've been saving for months. I'm this close, he said, holding his thumb and forefinger a fraction of an inch apart. You'll see. Claudia chuckled, shaking her head. You can't even keep your room clean half the time, but sure, you're going to manage bills, groceries, rent, and whatever else life throws at you. Let me guess, you'll be back here the second things get hard, won't you? That's not going to happen, Carter said, his voice sharp. He folded his arms, lifting his chin slightly. I've got everything figured out. I'll have a job, my own place, and I won't need you breathing down my neck all the time. Claudia tilted her head, her smirk widening. This is coming from the boy who wet the bed until he was 14. You sure you're ready to handle all that responsibility, Mr. Independent? Carter's face turned red, his embarrassment fueling his anger. That was a long time ago, he snapped. I'm not a kid anymore. I can handle myself. Claudia said, nodding sarcastically. Sure you can. I'll just sit back and wait for you to come running home, begging me to bail you out. Whatever, Carter muttered, grabbing his coat from the back of the chair. I don't have time for this. I've got work to do. Work? Claudia asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes, work, he said, heading for the door. I'm going next door to help out Mrs. Dolores. She's paying me $20 an hour, and it's going straight into my savings. Claudia rolled her eyes, the teasing grin still firmly in place. All right, Mr. Big Shot. Don't let me keep you from your important work. I won't, Carter said flatly, slamming the door behind him. Claudia stood in the empty kitchen for a moment, shaking her head and sighing. We'll see how long that lasts, she muttered to herself before turning back to the dishes. Chapter 2, A Long Day. Carter cut through the field behind his house, the tall grass brushing against his jeans. The ground was uneven, forcing him to watch his step as he made his way toward the tree line. The woods weren't thick, but the dirt path was just overgrown enough to slow him down. He muttered under his breath about ticks as he swatted at the occasional buzzing fly. By the time he reached Dolores's yard, the sun was high in the sky, and he was already sweating. Her yard was a mess. Weeds choked what little grass there was, curling around the bases of a few gnarled trees. The whole place looked like it hadn't been touched in decades, and the house itself loomed in the distance, large, dilapidated, and strangely foreboding. Carter shuddered as he stepped onto the property, his sneakers crunching on the gravel path. The door opened before Carter could knock. Dolores stood in the doorway, her dark, frizzy hair spilling over her shoulders. She wore a long, flowing gown that looked like something out of a medieval painting, deep green with gold embroidery, the fabric clinging to her in all the right places. Carter's face flushed as he took her in. She was older, sure, but there was something about her, full curves, piercing eyes, that made her undeniably attractive. He never told anyone, but he'd always thought so. You're here, she said, her voice low and rich. Come in. Carter stepped inside, immediately struck by the strange atmosphere of the house. The walls were lined with old, gilded frames, each one holding a faded photograph or an oil painting of somber-looking people. Half-burnt candles sat on almost every surface, their wax dripping into ornate holders. There were shelves of crystals and tarot cards, and pieces of folk art hung from the ceiling, twisting slowly in the air. "Your job's upstairs," Dolores said, motioning for him to follow. Her gown trailed behind her as she led him up the narrow staircase to the attic. "I need you to clear out that corner." She pointed to a cluster of boxes piled haphazardly against the far wall. "Everything in there is being thrown away." Carter nodded. "Got it." The attic was hot and dusty, the air thick and stifling. Carter coughed as he pulled the first box down, a plume of dust rising into the air. One by one, he carried the boxes down the creaking stairs, his shirt sticking to his back as sweat dripped down his forehead. He couldn't help but peek inside some of the boxes as he worked. Most were filled with old books, faded crafts, or stacks of yellowed papers. One box held a collection of seashells, while another was crammed with moth-eaten clothes. He brought each box out to the end of Dolores's street, setting them down by the curb for garbage collection. The walk was long, and the summer heat beat down on him mercilessly. By the time he brought down the last few boxes, Dolores appeared in the kitchen with a glass of what looked like cranberry juice. "Here," she said, handing it to him. "You look like you could use a drink." "Thanks," Carter said, gulping it down. The drink was earthy and slightly bitter, but he didn't complain. He really needed something to cool off. The last box he carried down caught his attention immediately. Unlike the others, it was a hodgepodge of items: tarot cards, old movie trading cards, and, to his surprise, a small stack of Pokémon cards. His heart skipped a beat as he thumbed through them, his breath catching when he saw it, a first edition Charizard. The card was worn, its edges frayed and a crease running through the corner, but Carter knew it was still worth a fortune, easily over $1,000, maybe more if he found the right buyer. "Hey," he called to Dolores, holding up the card. "Do you mind if I take some of these?" Dolores's expression darkened. "Don't you dare," she said firmly. "Everything in that box needs to be thrown away. There's bad energy in it." Carter blinked, surprised. "Bad energy?" "That's what I said," she replied, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Throw it all away." He shrugged, trying to act like he didn't care. But as he carried the box out to the curb, his mind raced. Bad energy? What a ridiculous excuse. She didn't even know what she had. As he set the box down, he slipped the Charizard card into his pocket. No harm done, he told himself. She wouldn't miss it. The sun was dipping below the horizon by the time Carter finished his work. He wiped the sweat from his brow and headed home, his legs aching and his shirt sticking to his skin. By the time he reached the porch, the sky was streaked with orange and pink. Claudia was sitting on the porch swing, watching the sunset. "There you are," she said as he climbed the steps. "I was starting to think you'd run off to the big city already." Carter rolled his eyes. "Very funny, Mom." But before he could say more, a strange sensation hit him. Warmth spread down the front of his jeans, and he froze, realizing with horror what had just happened. He had wet himself, right there, in front of his mother. Claudia stared at him for a moment, then burst out laughing. "Oh, my goodness," she said, clutching her stomach. "Is this your way of showing me you're a big boy who can live on his own?" Carter's face burned as he turned and bolted into the house. He pulled the Charizard card out of his pocket, ran to the bathroom, stripping off his wet clothes and tossing them into the laundry before retreating to his room. After tucking away the card in his desk drawer, he lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, wishing he could disappear. Carter was just starting to drift off when there was a knock at the door. "What?" he called, his voice muffled by his pillow. Claudia's voice came from the other side. "I was just wondering. Do you need me to run out and grab some diapers?" "Mom," Carter shouted, sitting up, his face flaming. "No." All right," Claudia said, laughing as she walked away. "Just checking." Carter groaned, pulling the blanket over his head. This day couldn't get any worse. Chapter 3, A New Low. Carter woke with a jolt, his blankets tangled around him. For a moment, he thought the dampness he felt was just sweat. But as he shifted, the truth became painfully clear: his bed was wet. His heart sank, panic flooding him as he stared at the large stain spreading across the sheets. "What the hell is going on?" he whispered, running his hands through his hair. He couldn't believe it. He hadn't wet the bed since he was a kid. He quickly gathered up the soaked sheets and his damp clothes, bundling them into a ball. The thought of his mom finding out sent a shiver down his spine. "I just have to get these washed before she sees," he told himself, throwing on a fresh t-shirt and jeans. Carter raced down to the laundry room, his bare feet slapping against the hardwood floor. He shoved the bundle into the washing machine, fumbling with the detergent as he tried to work as quickly as possible. Just as he poured the detergent in, he heard his mother's voice echo from upstairs. "Carter," Claudia yelled, her tone sharp. "What is this?" His stomach dropped. He froze, listening to her footsteps stomping down the hall, growing louder as she approached. He slammed the washing machine door shut and started the cycle just as she appeared in the doorway. Claudia stood there, her hands on her hips, her face a mixture of confusion and irritation. "There's a wet stain on your bed," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. "Tell me what happened." Carter's heart pounded. He avoided her gaze, staring at the washing machine as if it held the answer. "You know what happened," he muttered, his face turning red. "No," Claudia said, stepping closer and towering over him. "I want you to tell me what happened." Carter clenched his fists, his cheeks burning. He swallowed hard, barely able to force the words out. "I wet the bed last night. I don't know what's going on, but it's not going to happen again." Claudia raised an eyebrow, her lips twitching into a smirk. "Oh, it's not going to happen again?" she said. "You're right, it's not. Because we're going to the pharmacy right now to get you some diapers." "Mom, come on," Carter protested, his voice cracking. "No arguments," she said firmly. "Go grab your shoes. We're leaving." The drive to the pharmacy felt like a death march. Carter slumped in the passenger seat, wishing he could disappear. When they arrived, Claudia strode in with purpose, dragging him along like a scolded child. The diaper aisle loomed before them, and Carter's face burned as Claudia grabbed a pack of the thickest, bulkiest diapers on the shelf. "These look perfect," she said, holding them up for him to see. "Extra absorbent, just in case. What do you think?" "Mom, keep it down," Carter hissed, glancing nervously at the other shoppers. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," she said, waving him off. She tossed the pack into the cart and grabbed another one for good measure. "We'll need a few of these to start." She continued browsing, her voice loud enough to carry across the aisle. Should we get some rash cream too? And powder? Better to be safe, right?" Carter wished the ground would swallow him whole. To make matters worse, he spotted Mrs. Hardwick, one of their neighbors, at the end of the aisle. She gave them a curious glance, her eyebrows raising slightly as she took in the scene. Claudia, of course, didn't notice, or didn't care. "Do you think these will be enough while you sleep?" she asked, turning to Carter with a smirk. "Or maybe you should wear them all the time. What do you think? Can you hold it in until we get home?" "Yes," Carter mumbled, his face on fire. "Yes, what?" Claudia pressed, her grin widening. "Yes, I can hold it in," Carter said through gritted teeth. "Good," Claudia said, patting his shoulder. "Now, let's check out." At the register, Claudia pulled out his wallet from her purse and handed it to him. "Here you go," she said cheerfully. "You're paying for these. I already have to take care of you, I'm not buying your diapers too." Carter stared at her, stunned. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," Claudia said. "Go on, sweetie. You've got the money." With trembling hands, Carter opened his wallet and handed over the cash he'd earned the day before. Each dollar felt like a step further from his dream of moving out. As the cashier bagged the diapers, Carter kept his head down, unable to meet her eyes. "Thank you," Claudia said brightly, grabbing the bags. "Let's go." An unwelcome surprise. The ride home was silent, but Carter's humiliation was deafening. He stared out the window, trying to block out the sound of the crinkling bags in the back seat. As they turned onto their street, a sharp cramp hit Carter's stomach. He clenched his jaw, hoping it would pass, but the pain only worsened. Before he could stop it, a horrible realization hit him. "Oh, no," he whispered, his face going pale. "What's wrong?" Claudia asked, glancing at him. Carter didn't answer. He couldn't. The warmth spreading through his jeans said everything. Claudia wrinkled her nose as the smell hit her. "Carter," she said, her voice dripping with exasperation. "Did you just?" Carter's face burned as he buried it in his hands. He couldn't bring himself to respond. "Well," Claudia said, shaking her head. "I guess it's a good thing we bought those diapers after all." Chapter 4: A Humiliating Truth. The car ride home was silent, but Carter's mind was anything but. His thoughts raced, looping through every possible way he could save enough money to still move out. He'd been so close to escaping his mother's suffocating control, to finally being independent. But now, every dollar was slipping away with each humiliating expense. "Maybe I can sell my old games," he thought, clutching his wallet. "Or pick up extra shifts at the store. There's still the Charizard card. That'll cover most of it if I sell it fast enough." Beside him, Claudia was practically beaming. She glanced at him and smirked. "You know, Carter, I think your body's trying to tell you something. Maybe this whole moving out idea is just too much for you to handle." "Mom, stop," Carter muttered, his fists tightening. "I'm just saying," she continued, her tone teasing and triumphant. "Either you're doing this on purpose because you don't really want to leave, or you're so stressed about moving out that your nerves are getting the better of you. Either way, looks like you still need your mommy." As soon as they got home, Claudia handed him the bag of supplies with a smirk. "You probably need my help putting this on, don't you?" "No, I don't," Carter snapped, grabbing the bag and stomping up the stairs. "I can handle it." Claudia laughed softly. "Sure you can," she called after him. "Let me know when you change your mind." Carter slammed his bedroom door, his face burning with frustration. He tossed the bag onto the bed and headed to the bathroom, taking a quick shower to clean himself up. The hot water helped calm his nerves, but the knot in his stomach remained. After drying off, he returned to his room and sat on the bed. He ripped open the package of diapers. The thick, white plastic looked foreign and humiliating, but he steeled himself. Just get it over with, he thought. But as soon as his fingers touched the diaper's edges, a sharp, searing pain shot through his hands. He yelped, dropping the diaper as his fingers cramped up, twisting unnaturally. "What the?" he muttered, shaking his hands. He tried again, but the same thing happened. Every time he touched the diaper, his hands locked up, useless. It felt like touching something scalding, the pain radiating through his fingertips. Carter's panic grew with each failed attempt. What the hell is going on? Desperate for some reassurance, Carter reached for his secret weapon, the Charizard card. "This is my way out," he thought as he opened his desk drawer. But when he pulled it out, his breath caught in his throat. It wasn't the Charizard card anymore. It was a tarot card, the Ten of Swords. The card was bent and creased in the exact same places as the Charizard, the familiar were unmistakable. Carter stared at it, his heart pounding as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. "No, no, no," he whispered, digging deeper into the drawer, hoping the Charizard card was still there. But it wasn't. The tarot card was all he had, and the image on it, a man lying face down with 10 swords stabbing into his back, made his stomach churn. What is happening? He thought, his hands trembling. It felt like the universe was mocking him, stripping away his last hope. Defeated, Carter trudged downstairs, his shoulders slumped. Claudia was sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine. She looked up and smirked when she saw him. "Let me guess," she said, setting the magazine aside. "You need my help." Carter hesitated, his pride warring with his desperation. I can't do it," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "My hands. They won't work." Claudia's smirk widened. "Oh, Carter," she said, standing up. "I knew it. I knew you'd come crawling back. You still need your mommy after all." "Mom, please," Carter muttered, his face burning. "Just get it over with." Claudia led him to his room, her grin never fading. "Lie down," she instructed, pulling out a diaper. Carter obeyed, his humiliation mounting with every step. "This is going to be fun," Claudia said, unfolding the thick diaper with an exaggerated flourish. "Lift your hips." Carter did as he was told, his cheeks burning as she slid the diaper under him. The plastic crinkled loudly, a constant reminder of his predicament. "We don't want you getting a rash," Claudia said, squeezing a generous amount of diaper rash cream onto her hands. She rubbed it over his skin with a clinical efficiency, but her tone was anything but professional. "This is what happens when little boys try to act like big men." "Mom, can you not?" Carter muttered, staring at the ceiling. "Oh, I'm just stating the obvious," she said, grabbing the baby powder. She shook it liberally over him, the sweet scent filling the room. "Lots of powder to keep you nice and dry." Finally, she pulled the diaper up between his legs and taped it securely in place. The thickness was impossible to ignore, forcing his legs slightly apart. Claudia patted the front of the diaper and grinned. "There we go. All snug." Carter covered his face with his hands, wishing he could disappear. "You know," Claudia said, stepping back to admire her work, "I think this suits you. You're not big enough to move out, you're just a big baby in his diaper." Thanks so much for watching today. We hope you enjoyed this week's story and found it relatable, enjoyable, or just a little comforting. Remember, we post new videos every week, so if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. If you found this helpful or know someone who might, don't forget to like the video and share it with your community. Your support means everything and helps us keep creating content just for you. And if you'd like to see sequels, vote on upcoming stories, or even get a custom tale made just for you, check out our Patreon. Every bit of support keeps the magic alive. Until next time, take care and stay true to yourself.